This is the first of two linked videos on the impact of artificial intelligence on classroom practice. This video looks at its possible impact on one subject, the teaching of biology in secondary schools. The second video looks at wider issues that affect all teachers in every classroom in the world. The short films are an introduction to the ideas that I developed further in my blog at neilingram.co.uk. So the aims of the video today are to consider the possible impact of generative AI on classroom practice in schools, and also on our understanding of the subject of biology. We'll start by having a look at some of the things that ChatGPT-4 can do today, at some of the things that it struggles with, and at what it might do in the future. The second related video considers whether schools will be willing or indeed able to accommodate AI technology into their routine classroom activities. So let's start by playing a word game. What word comes into your head as I say the word hardy? Well, I asked ChatGPT-4 and it came up with the idea of hardy meaning physical strength or resilience. A hardy plant is one that is tolerant of difficult conditions. Came up with the idea of economic resilience, courage and boldness. And then it makes the note that the context in which the term is used will determine its exact meaning. We're encouraged to have a dialogue with AI, and so I go back and I ask it a slightly different question. Explain who you associate with the term hardy. So now I'm looking for a person, and it's come up with all the famous Hardys that it knows, from Thomas Hardy through to Hardy Amies. Giving more context, or giving the right context, is an integral feature of good development of prompts for AI. ChatGPT recommends that we tell AI who or what you want it to be before you start at the beginning of the discussion. So let's add a biological context. You are a biology teacher teaching an advanced class of 17 to 18-year-old students. Explain what you associate with the term hardy. What do you think it'll come up with? Well, it's come up with the idea of Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, which is an idea in A-level population genetics, and it gives a good account of the main principles of the equations. Notice at the bottom of the screen it gives its sources. It's been trained using popular sites that support student learning like Khan Academy and Save My Exams. It's not been trained on expert sites about population genetics. Now that's probably okay, but any misconceptions on those popular sites will be incorporated into the way that AI sees the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. So what is AI? What is generative AI? It's a type of artificial intelligence that can generate new forms of text, image or visual media. And it learns by absorbing and reading vast amounts of information, what are called large language models. And it uses this to predict answers to the questions that the users give it. It is in fact a large pattern recognition machine. It is not a thinking machine. It does not understand biology. It does not understand population genetics. So who are the big players in AI? Well, OpenAI are the ones who have developed ChatGPT just over a year ago. Microsoft is a large investing partner in OpenAI, and if you use Microsoft Copilot, then what you're using is the latest version of ChatGPT-4. Google's DeepMind has also developed its own large language model called Google Bard, and it's promising a new version called Gemini at the start of 2024. So here are some prompts for researching the cardiac cycle. We begin by asking AI to be an advanced level biology teacher teaching the English AQA specification, Unit 3.3.4.1. I gave it the details of the topic next, but I suspect that these will be stored within the AI in due course. I explain the task as precisely as I can, and on this occasion give no details about the format of the output. And here are the responses. The summary output is accurate, although it does use some terminology that might not appear in AQA exams, mitral valve for example, rather than bicuspid. And this could be corrected through further training. In due course I would expect AI used in schools to be fully trained on the language and the terminology of their specifications, so I think this is a temporary issue. I can see teachers using this kind of preparatory information as part of their lesson preparation. This is a very effective summary of the cardiac cycle and the changes that take place within the heart. I then go on to ask it to generate some multiple choice questions. Notice the accuracy of the prompts that I give it. 4 option retrieval multiple choice questions based on the section described above. So I'm asking it now to produce some retrieval questions that I might use at the end of a lesson or as a mini test. And you can see that it's generated the multiple choice questions correctly, it's identified the correct answer, and these questions are perfectly usable and they can be produced very quickly, and I think this is an area that teachers will find particularly helpful in their routine lesson planning. But you can do a lot more with AI. You can use it to generate imaginative stories. So here are some prompts that I use to ask AI to write a story. Write me an imaginative story about a group of young water molecules entering a plant across the root hairs, travelling across the root up the stem in the xylem to the leaves. Notice I say you can give the water molecules names, emotions and intentions. And this is the response that I gave. I should say that I didn't at this point give ChatGPT any indication of the length of output, and it produced me a 1200 word essay. You could make it shorter, but you can see the kinds of things that it's coming up with. Wendy, Willie and Wally were 3 water molecules who lived in a pond. They loved to play and explore together, but they also wanted to see the world beyond the water. And the whole story does fit the task specification really very well. You could then say to it, okay, translate this into any language you like. I've got it translated into French. The ability to translate accurately into multiple languages is something that I think it will be a huge benefit to teachers teaching students whose English is not their first language in a variety of different contexts. We're beginning to move towards something that will allow personalisation of resources. AI also can generate images. It builds images based on prompts and its associations with its previous training. It then gives you 4 options and you're able to modify the prompts to get AI to redraw the image. The kind of software that it's using is something like DALL-E, but others are available such as Midjourney and Canva. So let's have a look at the diagram I asked of it to draw a heart during ventricular systole. You need to remember that AI has got no idea what a heart looks like, although it has recognised similar diagrams from its training. It recognises that the heart has its own blood supply, but it doesn't know whether or not the blood supply is on the outside of the heart or on the inside, so it's filled the ventricle spaces with blood vessels. It looks superficially correct, but is actually inaccurate. It doesn't understand how the heart works. It's also not very good at dealing with text. So you'd have to go back to AI and retrain it until you got an image that was accurate. But this is the first stage of an iterative process, and eventually you could end up with a diagram that's looking reasonably respectable. So for example, the water crowfoot plant on the left is generated using DALL-E. Water crowfoot's a plant that has two kinds of leaves. It has aerial leaves that are above the water and submerged leaves below the water. And in this case it's got the aerial leaves really quite well, and it's beginning to develop the submerged leaves, but this would have to be produced in future iterations to get it more accurate. Likewise, the diagram on the right is of an extinct creature called an ammonite, and it is beginning to reconstruct what scientists think that creature looked like, all using text prompts. And again, the more care you take in writing the text prompts before you start, the better the output you will get. Midjourney is a subscription site that is used to produce images, often of an artistic nature. If you see a picture that looks like a famous artist, the chances are it's been generated in Midjourney. So this is my early attempt at you doing Father Christmas riding a Harley Davidson motorbike. And yeah, it has a certain style about it. At first glance, AI should do well on genetics questions, which are really genetics is applied pattern searching. So how will it cope with a really tricky, difficult AQA genetics question? So again, these are the prompts. You are a biology teacher teaching an advanced class of 17 to 18-year-old students. I then give it the specification details, and then this is the output statement, and this is the critical thing. Use this information to answer this examination question. Keep the numbering of the parts of the question the same. For each part of the question, give the question number, the answer, and a brief explanation of how you got to the answer. So let's see how it does. This is the opening part of the question. What's meant by the term phenotype? A straightforward AO1, as we call it, direct recall from the spec. And surprise, surprise, it gets it pretty well. The first two paragraphs of its answer scores the full marks on the AQA mark scheme. Again, it's recall, it's pulling this time from a dictionary and it's pulling it from a genome.gov site. It's a fairly accurate answer, which actually goes beyond what you would expect in an exam. So now the next part of the question has got a diagram. The problem we have is that AI cannot read diagrams. Well, let me just run through it with you for a moment or two. Basically, there are two genes interacting here, gene A and gene B. And there are different fruit colours, white fruit, yellow fruit, or green fruit. A plant with big A or big A little a will give you white fruit. Little a in combination with a B allele will give you yellow fruit. So in other words, to get beyond the first step of white, you have to have the double recessive little a. And then the colour you get depends upon the B gene. Big B or big B little b will give you yellow fruit in an individual with little a. And the double recessive little a, little b will give you green fruit. That's how the problem works. But AI can't read that diagram. So what I did was I actually told it the link between the genotypes and the phenotypes. I produced a table that actually gave it the answers. The students in the exam will be expected to work that out through a series of logical inferences, but I had to train AI to do that. Having said that, it then got on with the rest of the question. Name the type of interaction shown in the figure. Again, it gives me a very good explanation. It recognises that it's dominant epistasis, and it gives me a very good account of what it is. Again, it's drawing from the information that it's been trained on. Now we get to the more complicated question, which is a Hardy-Weinberg calculation. We know that AI knows about Hardy-Weinberg because we saw that right at the beginning. So how does it get on with this? Well, in most Hardy-Weinberg questions, when you're given a percentage, it's usually the double recessive, which is q squared. And a square root of that will give you q, and then you can calculate p and all the other things you need. In this particular case, that's not true because it's yellow fruit. And if you remember, yellow fruit is caused by big B and big B little b. And therefore, in order to be able to find out what the double recessive is, you have to take that away from 100. AI didn't get this. I suspect most of the students in the AQA exam didn't get it either. It is targeted at an A grade. So in order for AI to get this, it had to be trained. Just to remind you then, we're looking for the yellow fruit being big B, or big B, little b. So I had to remind it of that. And then when I'd reminded it of that, it was able to do the calculation and get the right answer. So it could get the right answer, but only when it was trained against that specific question. Now, hopefully, it would be able to remember in future to check the genotype against the frequency before doing the calculation. That is the step that it missed, but it couldn't do it without some form of specialised training. So this is my wish list for the future. I would love, there's me as a young teacher at the back of the class, and this is a class very much like the sort of class I taught when I first started teaching. Young, bright, enthusiastic Year 10 class. Next week we're going to study the topic of respiration. I would like them to know what they know, or should know, before we start teaching it. What do they need to know in order to be able to understand my lessons on respiration? And I'd like them to go to AI, ask the question, and be given a checklist of the important things they need to know, with links so that they can bring their prior knowledge up to scratch before they attend my lesson. I see that as a really useful use of AI. Well, it's actually quite difficult to get it to do it. Here we are, this is the answer it gave me, and you can see that it's really telling me what I'm about to teach them. This is what they'd be expected to know after they've been to my lessons, not before it. And just to rub salt into the wounds, if you read the last couple of sentences, it says, oh, by the way, the real topic is even more complicated than this. And I would expect students to feel very demoralised if they started to use something that looked like this. It doesn't help them prepare for the first lesson of the topic at all. So what do we need? We need to give and train AI on age-sensitive information so it knows at each stage of a child's learning journey what it should already know. And there are documents that exist that do this for biology. The Royal Society of Biology's Evolving 5 to 19 Biology Framework does precisely this. And it's also produced a series of cross-cutting themes which show how all these ideas link together and give AI an opportunity to think about what the destination of learning biology is all about. And training AI on documents like this will give us the basis of producing the kind of app that would allow them to find out what they should know at every stage of their learning journey. So, to finish with, it will do poetry after a fashion. and it will give you rhyming poetry. DNA is the code of life. It tells us who we are. It's made of 4 bases that shine like a star. DNA is copied and read by enzymes that work with skill. It's used to make proteins that shape and build. DNA is inherited and varied. It comes from our family tree. It's influenced by changes and mixes that create diversity. DNA is amazing and beautiful. It's the essence of biology. It's the source of our identity and history. It's the mystery of our destiny.